In the last unit, we talked a lot about units. So in this section, we're going to look at something called dimensional analysis, which is a way that we can convert from one unit to another. Okay, so anytime that two quantities are equal, they can be put into a fraction that is equal to 1. Okay, for example, let me just kind of erase that equal to 1 right there. Okay, so for example, we know that 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. So we could think about writing this as a fraction of 1 foot divided by 12 inches. Because those two quantities are equal to one another, this is equal to 1. Okay, and you could also write it the other direction. 12 inches divided by 1 foot would also be equal to 1 in the same way, okay? And which direction you write the fraction is going to be dependent on what you're given and what you're trying to find. Okay? Now, another important piece of information to think about here is that anytime you take something and you multiply it by 1, you just get the same number back out. So a quantity A times 1 is always just going to equal A. Okay, so anytime you multiply something by 1, you just get the same thing back out. It's just that it's written in a slightly different way sometimes. Okay, all right, so let's use these two ideas in order to do some unit conversions. All right, so the first one we want to look at, we want to convert 200 miles into inches. Okay, so in the textbook, they gave you this unit conversion chart, so I went ahead and just pulled it up here. All right, so we can just kind of pull some important units off of here. So this time it's asking us to convert from miles to inches. Well, one thing that we might want to use is that there are 5,280 feet in every 1 mile. I'm going to copy that up here. So that's going to be a helpful piece of information. And the other thing that I'm going to want to use is that there are 12 inches in every 1 foot. Okay, now if you just know these off the top of your head, that's great. If not, we can always look them up. Okay, so these are going to be the two important pieces of information that we'll use in this example. All right, so what we do for dimensional analysis is we always start by just writing down the value that we were given, which in this case is 200 miles. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to multiply by 1 in some capacity. Now remember, in order to multiply by 1, you basically think about just multiplying by the fraction or the ratio of two different quantities that are equal to one another. Now we want to be paying close attention to the units when we decide how to write our fraction though. So in this case, we're starting with miles. So our goal is going to be to write our fraction in a way that the miles will cancel out. Well, the only way that can happen is if we put the miles in the denominator and we put the feet in the numerator. So we know this equivalency here, that 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. So I'm going to multiply by 5,280 feet divided by 1 mile. Now again, the reason I know to put it that way is because the miles on top cancel with the miles on the bottom, and now we've converted our miles into feet. Okay, and we haven't actually changed anything because we just multiplied by 1 here. It's just that we're writing it in a different way. All right, well, we weren't asked to go to feet though, we were asked to go to inches. So now we're going to want to convert from the feet to the inches. So again, we're going to multiply by 1, okay? And we're going to do so by, again, making that fraction of the equivalencies. So this time we want to get rid of the feet and convert to inches. So since our feet is in the numerator, we're going to want to put feet in the denominator, and we're going to want to put inches in the numerator. And then just look at our equivalency here. We know that every 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. So 12 inches on top and 1 foot on the bottom. So then our feet on the top and bottom are going to cancel out, and the units that we're left with are the inches. That's good because that's what we were trying to get to. Okay. All right, so now we just need to plug this into our calculators. Pull up my calculator real quick here. There we go. all right, so when we plug this in, think about our numbers here. So we have 200 times 5,280 divided by 1, but it doesn't really change anything to divide by 1, so we can kind of just ignore that. Then times 12 divided by 1, but again, division by 1 doesn't really change anything, so we can kind of just ignore that. So all I'm going to do is 200 times 5,280 times 12. All right, and that gives us this guy. So let me just copy it down here. I'm going to add my commas. All right, so that is 12,672,000, and this is now inches. Okay, so there are 12,672,000 inches in 200 miles. Okay, and if you want to write that out in a sentence, we can do that. So I'm going to say there are 12,672,000 inches in 200 miles. Okay, this is the basic idea with this dimensional analysis. Start off with the units that you're given, multiply by some fraction that equals 1 in order to go from the given units to the desired units. Okay. All right, so our next example, we're going to convert 65 miles per hour to kilometers per hour. Okay, so again, I'm going to pull out my conversion sheet here. So I know we want to go from miles to kilometers. So use this little guy right here and copy that. All right, so I know that there are 1.60934 kilometers in every 1 mile. Okay. All right, so same as the last one, we're going to start by just writing down our given value, which was 65 miles. Remember that word per just means division. So miles divided by hours. Okay. All right, so on this one, we're going from miles per hour to kilometers per hour. So we don't have to do anything to convert the time. We still have hours in both of them. So the only thing we have to worry about converting is the miles to kilometers. So again, we're going to multiply by 1. So in this case, we want to get rid of the miles. So I'm going to put the miles in the denominator, and we want to convert to kilometers. So I'm going to put the kilometers in the numerator. So our equivalency is that there are 1.60934 kilometers in every 1 mile. Okay, and again, we just need to plug this into our calculators to get an answer. So before I do that, let me just note here the miles on top canceled with the miles that we put on the bottom. So our final unit is just kilometers per hour. Okay. Now when we plug this into our calculators, we're just going to want to do the 65 times 1.60934, technically divided by 1, but like we talked about in the last example, dividing by 1 doesn't change anything. So really all we need to do is just 65 times 1.6094, and we get 104.6071. I'll go ahead and round it to 2 decimal places, so I'll just say 104.61, and this is now kilometers per hour. Okay, so 65 miles per hour is equivalent to 104.61 kilometers per hour. Okay. All right, guys, so in the next video, we're going to look at another QR example, so keep watching for that.